Hello friends, how are you doing today? I'm Anand and I'll be taking you through domain 3, which is information system acquisition, development and implementation. Now friends, as you are aware of this is a very important domain of CISA. Domain 3 has close to around 18%, 17 to 18% of the questions comes from that, which is around 27 questions. And this is also a very interesting domain because from a practice area perspective, this is a domain which has a lot of impact in what you guys are going to do once you become CISA. I'm sure listening to Rajiv from module 1 or domain 1 and domain 2, you have now understood the importance of an information systems auditor. Now we need to understand one very important thing here is that when you are actually working through this domain, our focus is more on the audit perspective of information system acquisition, development, and implementation. In the old days, we used to have this concept of SDLC, System Development Life Cycle. But over a period of time, friends, what has happened is we see that today we have lot more areas which requires us to have the focus in over the counter, or we call it off the shelf software. So acquisition becomes important. Organizations are understanding this, and because of that, it is very important for all of us to know this complete domain and understand it well. So it will not just help you in examination, but as a practicing area where as an IS auditor in the futures, you would be able to add a lot of value to your organizations as well as your clients. So let's dig deep into this. Now, domain 3, as I told you, the focus is on the processes, methodology which are used by the organization when they are creating or changing any application system and infrastructure component. We all know the concept of the term which is being used by ISACA extensively. We use a term which is called system, information system. Now, this term is a very important term to understand. What is an information system? When we are calling about our information system, our focus is to understand this term in the perspective of what we are going to do. As you know, information is nothing but processed data, and system is nothing but when we have a different set or interrelated component working together for a common goal, we call that as a system. Now, think of this. If you're right now at taking this session on YouTube or any other channels, it basically means you're using your hardware. You're using a software, which is a browser, and you are also using networking. And you have to go and search this video and basically be able to work on that. Now, this is a combination of interrelated component who are working together to give us this video to us. So information system is basically nothing but a group of interrelated components which are processing information, input, process, output, and it takes it out there. Now we have to deal in domain 3 on the perspective of acquisition, how organization acquire it. Now you may think, oh, this is just a very simple thing, but actually not. In complex mission critical systems which are used by organization everywhere, it is something which is very, very important from a perspective of organization, that are we acquiring the right application? Are we setting it up in the right environment? Is it actually giving us the objective of for what it has been set? So this is something which becomes very, very important. Sometimes it is not possible to basically acquire that system. What I mean by acquire the system, there is nothing which is already available off the shelf. In that case, friends, what we do is we need to go with development of the system. Now this development is also very important. We need to set it up a project viability. We need to see the feasibility study. We need to understand why we are actually dealing with that. And there are also some element of cost benefit analysis. Is it really meeting all the objective? So it's actually a very complex process, and we need to know that we are doing it all correctly. One small mistake, it can lead to a big fiasco in the organization. If you actually search on the net, you will find a lot of such fiasco which has happened because organizations have not developed the systems correctly, and that led to a big loss, both reputation wise and financially, to the organizations which were working on that. And that's why the development becomes important. Last but not least, the implementation. All of you know, no one likes change, and organization change management is a big challenge in itself. Now, going by that terminology, it becomes very important for us to understand that we have developed or we have acquired the right software, but when we are implementing it, are people using it the right way? I'm sure you have seen this happening in many of your, experience as a, I would say implementer or anything, that people are not taking the complete benefit of what information system has been built for, all the features of the information systems and how it can be used effectively out there. So those are the things, the three things we need to focus on, and we'll be going deep into this, trying section by sections and trying to understand how it is important and what is the way an IS auditors has to look into this perspective. Okay, moving forward, friends, the objective. So I just wanted to make sure in the first video I can give you a complete introduction to this. So here, at the end of this module, that's very important that we should know what is the key takeaway, what are the key objectives which we should be able to do that. So in this domain, once we are done, as a IS auditor, you should be able to do the following. So if we are able to achieve this objective, it basically means you have learned this chapter well. The first thing is you need to be able to evaluate a business case of a proposed change. When I say business case, we'll be going deep into the second video on this, but basically it means is whatever the business objective is. If by domain 1 and domain 2 you have already understood that always business objective is primary and the IS objective are secondary to that. So whatever the business objectives are there, it can be change in regulatory environment, it can be something what we call it as change in the business is dynamic. So whatever changes are happening in terms of what we call it as your business, and that has to come into what we call it as your information system. So I need to develop a business case for that, and we should be able to see the word which is very important here, and I want you to focus on this: evaluate. You are not developing the business case as an IS auditor. You should be able to know what is the business case and does it really make sense? Has it been covered from all perspective? Had it taken into account the senior management concerns? Have it taken into account the mid-level management who are going to use it? Whatever the point is, that we should be able to understand the business case and able to see what are the changes which are there and does it all make sense. The second objective, friends, which is again very important, is this is again you will should be able to evaluate the organization project management policies and practices. Now, every organization is different. I'm sure you would have already seen it. Even if you take two banks, across any part of the world, let's say Wells Fargo and Alpine, or any other banks, they're all banks, but the way they do organization project management, the way their policies are there, the way as an organization they move, it is going to be different. And there is also one more term which is very important out here, which we call as the practices. And friends, you need to understand one important thing. Policies, as we know, you have already seen in your module 1 and 2, is basically a high level statement giving the management intent. But practices are unwritten rule. This is something which we do it. It's not something which is being, uh, objectively said that you need to be following it up, but it's a practice in organization which is done. So we need to evaluate those policies and practices. The third objective of this, at the end of this module, what we should be able to do is evaluate all the stages of the development cycle. What we call it as, there are different stages. We'll be able to, we'll be going through that, and it is already there in your CRM. I'm sure you have actually gone through it once. And we should be able to evaluate all the stages of this information system development lifecycle. It can be agile methodology, it can be waterfall model, it can be any of the model, but we should be able to know what are the stages which are involved and how we should be able to meet that objective which is there, and are the controls being put into that. The important word here, friends, is the controls which are there. There are checks and balances which are there, and those controls should be at every stage of the system development lifecycle. The fourth objective is we need to be able to know that the information system which has been acquired or developed, is it readiness for implementation and migration. The readiness is something which is very important. Sometimes organizations are not able to know that have they taken care of all the organization change management, the configuration management, have they made sure that migration from the old system the new system, because there can be a, it's a very risky approach, if you just close down your old system and actually go for the new system. There can be a parallel approach which is less risky, but is going to be more time consuming and also cost intensive. So we need to have a clear understanding in terms of the migration and the implementation of it into production and how it can be done. So we need to be able to, as an IS auditor, evaluate that. Okay, friends. The fifth one is the most interesting one, which I like. It is called the PIR, or post implementation review. Once the implementation is done, we need to really look into, maybe it will be maybe 3 months or 6 months after the system is live and people are actually using it, that whether we have all the project deliverables which are there or not. Have we put onto all the required controls? Because it's always important to see the design effectiveness of control as well as operating effectiveness. The design effectiveness would be something what we call it as, has the control been built into the system, or is it operating as it was designed to do? So we need to look into that, and all the requirement which was set at the time of feasibility, at the time of business case drafting, that okay, this is the business case of having a new system or developing a new system, have we met that or not? So that's something which we need to look into and then take it forward. And last but not least, there are some very important points on relating to change management, configuration management, release management, patch management. What are the policies and practices in the organization? How they are dealing with that? What are the key factors which are considered by them in terms of managing the whole system development areas? So friends, just to summarize, these are the, I would say, 6 main objective of domain 3, and we would be taking you through each of them and discussing with you in more detail in the coming videos.